We have an amazing group of experts now for you. We're so lucky. I can't wait to hear what they have to say. You have bios of all our speakers in your package, so we're not going to go through extensive introductions, but I'm going to start at the far end of the table with a neighbor, Allan Wernick, who is truly one of the city's leading experts on immigration. He runs the Immigration Center at CUNY. He's a professor at Baruch. He's a syndicated columnist, including a column at the Daily News. So we're very, very lucky to have Allan here, a friend and a neighbor. Thank you. And Allan, I'd like to take it away, please. Thank you.
So I was told that the idea of our panel here tonight is to each of us to speak for about 5 minutes and then open up for discussion, which I think is an appropriate approach. And I just want to say, going forward, that I think it's a very, very tough time. I wanted to devote my 5 minutes to talking about what a difficult time we face in the immigrant community and the struggle for immigrants' rights. You know, there's a lot of, when things go, there are certain people who always want to take an optimistic outlook, and I try to be optimistic too, but also you have to tell the truth to the people. And, you know, if you listen to some of the advocates for immigrants' rights, no matter what happens, the future is always very bright. And you know, comprehensive reform is around the corner, or, you know, so many Hispanics voted for Democrats in the last election that somehow, you know, it really looks great. It doesn't look great. It looks really terrible. And I will tell you that we're not going to see comprehensive immigration reform for at least 3 or 4 years before it even gets seriously considered. We're not going to see the DREAM Act. I mean, Senator Reid said that he's going to bring it up for a vote in the lame duck. I believe that he'll try. I know that some Hispanic leaders, Latino leaders met with the president yesterday, and he assured them he'll do everything he can. You know, but to say you're going to do everything you can, this doesn't mean you're going to be successful, and I think we have to be realistic about it. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of positive things coming out of our Congress. And I think what we're going to see more of is the kind of, you know, racist, bigoted presentation that was shown in some of the slides about immigrants. You know, when the federal government drove the Indians out of the South and into the Southwest and out of the East Coast, the only way they could do that, because the American people are basically a decent people. That's how I believe that. I believe that that's the way they were then, and I believe they are now. But the way they did it was to demonize the immigrants. You know, talk about how bad they were. The Indians. Talk about how they were savages. Take everything that was done wrong by, you know, a member of an Indian tribe and try to make it seem like everyone in the Indian nations, all the different Indian nations, were like that. Well, that's what's going to happen more and more, I think, in the United States. We're going to see more demonization of immigrants. And I think what's going to happen is, if I can just prognosticate for a minute, less than a few minutes, it's only 5, in the next 2 minutes, I think what's going to happen is, you know, the Tea Party people and the people who are demanding these dramatic changes in government are not going to get anything. They're not going to get anything better. America's not going to get better. Whether the Republicans or the Democrats have power in the next 2 years, I think the problems that our country faces are so vast and so interrelated with the international situation and the world economy. It's just not going to. We're not going to go back to the way things were in 2006, 2007 for many, many years. So when these people realize that that their Republican friends are not going to produce for them, there's going to be scapegoating. And the only ones left to scapegoat, the only ones weak enough, are the undocumented immigrants. And so I think that the things that we can do in response to that and to prevent that, I said there's a few things that I think we can do. I mean, one is that I think that in the face of this kind of negativism, we need to fight harder, more stronger, and more boldly. I mean, if we look what happened with the DREAM Act, you know, many of our federal legislators wouldn't come out for the DREAM Act. And even Nydia Velázquez, who's head of the Hispanic caucus, until students demanded it, until students sat in, until students went on hunger strikes, and forced these elected officials to come out and understand the DREAM Act was something important. And the DREAM Act, I'm assuming you know about it. You can ask. If you don't, you can ask about it during the discussion. But it helps undocumented students. The next thing I think is important is that, you know, that we stop trying to convince people based on, you know, abstract economic, academic arguments why immigrants are good for America. I mean, I believe that immigrants don't take jobs. I believe that my Social Security depends on more immigration. I believe that. But it's really hard to convince somebody that that's true. That's really counterintuitive. It makes no sense. It's true, but you know, you can't expect every American citizen who votes to be an economist and a scholar and to study all this stuff and figure out when they see their neighbors losing their jobs every day, and they see undocumented or documented immigrants working in some of those jobs. It's just too hard to make that kind of case when you have, in California, because you know a very large immigrant population, particularly probably more undocumented people there than here, they have 12.5% unemployment. And who's going to believe that undocumented immigrants ought to get some benefit when you have 12.5% unemployment? So I think the response to that has to be, rather than trying to make these academic arguments, is to present the facts about immigrants and immigration in the United States in a more personal way. You know, the first soldier, I don't know if you know this, but the very first soldier who died in the Iraq War was somebody who came here undocumented and had become a U.S. citizen. It's something a lot of people don't know. And finally, I think we have to put our politicians' feet to the fire. I mean, what you see happen, let's just take an example of somebody that we all know and love, Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton did not support comprehensive, when she was a senator, comprehensive immigration reform until 10,000 people, 15,000 people marched in downtown Manhattan. Very first time that she came out for comprehensive immigration reform. That doesn't mean she's a bad person or that she didn't support immigrants, but that was the first time she made that kind of public statement. So I think the thing is, you know, this is a dangerous time in this country, and it's especially dangerous for immigrants. I mean, if I was in Arizona, and I mean this, you know, Arizona, everyone's got a gun. I'd get me a gun too if I lived in an immigrant community. I would be organizing self-defense teams like the Black Panthers did in the 60s in Oakland, and the police were just shooting black people, black men, because they stood on a corner. So, you know, I think it's going to get that bad. That's what I think. I think it's going to get that bad. In fact, this is the last point I'm making. You know, I'm in touch with the people in the police department who deal with the immigrant communities, and I'm trying to get a better understanding from them of how the Hasidic community in Brooklyn organizes these patrols with the walkie-talkies, what kind of training they have, what kind of relationship they have with the local police departments. Because I think that's something that we should do in every immigrant community, is strengthen our relationship with the local. We can't. This is not Arizona where everyone has a gun. We're not going to defend ourselves in the street. I don't think that's. I'm not calling for that. What I'm calling for, just to be clear, what I'm calling for is for those of us who are living in immigrant communities and those of us who are immigrants to try and work more with the local police and figure out a way how we can organize our communities to defend ourselves, to watch out for our neighbors, to make sure with like these poor Mexican fellows who were in Staten Island that got beat up. I mean, that is going to happen more and more. What we need to do is prevent that. I'm sorry, how many minutes was that exactly?